evening, and thank you for joining us this evening on Empowering Women on AAU Media, where we empower you, empower us, and empower the world. We make changes as we move forward. Tonight, we're going to be discussing nutrition and fitness and how we can better ourselves and make us a healthier you. Tonight, I have two lovely doctors that are going to change you and be able to change how we see ourselves and how we can empower ourselves. So, first, I want to introduce Dr. Shauna Thompson. Dr. Thompson is an OBGYN, and she's also a diplomat of the American Board of Obesity Medicine. She's also board certified in obstetrics and gynecology. Um, Shauna also is an adjunct professor at the Health Administration at NYU Robert Wagner Graduate School of Public Health. And she is very well known within the healthcare innovations sector and is an excellent keynote speaker. She loves classical ballet, and she is very well versed within the EMR implementation and is known as an epic champion. So, Shauna, welcome tonight. We have a lot of questions that we are going to be discussing. And next, I want to also introduce Dr. Michelle Reed. Dr. Michelle Reed is a board certified family medicine physician, also a public speaker, and a best selling author. She is the owner and director of MS Family Medicine Healthcare, located in Long Island and Garden City, and also in Rosedale, Queens. She authored Mentally Fit, Physically Strong, The Fit Doctor's Guide to Real Life, Real Fitness, Real Health. And that gives people the tools to start maintaining a healthy and fitness-driven lifestyle. I've known Dr. Reed for a very long time as well, and she's very active within the community, serves on a number of different boards like the National Medical Association. She's also the physician executive section for that National Medical Association and Public Health Commission for the New York State Academy of Family Medicine. So I have Dr. Shauna Thompson and Dr. Michelle Reed joining us tonight. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I'm going to start off with Dr. Thompson. What are some of the causes for obesity and overweight?
Oh, you had to start easy, right?
Yes, I had to start easy.
So, I mean, this is an interesting question. I'll say that it is multifactorial. It's more than calories in, calories out. It's a multifactorial reason. One can think directly of excess food. However, why is one overeating? Is it convenience? Is it the hours you worked? Is it how you were raised? There are medical conditions that are associated with being overweight or obese, such as steroids, depression. There are genetic conditions. So the causes of obesity and being overweight, it's more, so much more than overeating.
And Dr. Reed, how do you counsel your patients, as a fit doctor, on obesity and overweight?
Well, first of all, I try to tell them everything that I personally do because that sort of humanizes me being a doctor. So, yes, I have the white coat on. Yes, I have my red favorite color stethoscope. But when they see you as a human being, that makes you a lot more relatable. So I give by example. Guess what? I was pregnant with twins. I gained so much weight during that pregnancy. I wasn't happy with how I looked after the pregnancy, and I've always enjoyed exercising. So I tried to think, what exercise would I like to do? I started running because I was inspired by other women to run. I grew up running track. I ran track from junior high school all the way through college. So when I say things like that, they're like, oh, wow. So she's really serious about what she wants us to do. And also just explaining the importance of being healthy. And if you're a woman, I'll say to a woman, Do you want another woman raising your child? And if it's a guy, I'll say the same thing. Do you want another man to step into your feet to raise your children because you didn't do all the things that you could do to be healthy? Things like that will sort of like, you know what? Maybe she's telling me something I need to think about.
That's an interesting way of getting to having a patient understand the need for health and nutrition. So, Shauna, what is considered a normal weight or a normal BMI? People talk about BMI. So, what is a BMI?
Yeah. So, there's a few things I want to piggyback on what Dr. Reed was saying. We are fortunate because we are women and we have women patients. And so oftentimes relaying that story, talking about our personal journeys, our trials and tribulations really helps to partner with our patients because they see that we have gone through this. So I think about that every day and just how valuable that connection is. So in terms of the body mass index, the BMI, it's one of many calculators that we have to quantify being obese. It is what it is. It's not perfect. So it's a certain amount of weight divided by meters squared. Luckily, we have Google. We have all these different things that we can plug in our height and weight and centimeters, whatever metric you want to plug it in, and it spits out a number. And so if I had to say, like, what is technically that normal number, it's between 18.5 and 24.9. That is a normal BMI. However, what I will say is that it's not perfect. Why is that? We have bodybuilders who are quite fit, but they would technically be obese because they have a heavier body mass. I will also add that some of the most recent counts show that 80% of Americans are obese or overweight. 80. It's quite high. So normal BMI, technically under 25, but what does that mean? And so we do focus on being healthy. We focus on having healthy lifestyle, eating habits to help us achieve longevity and being a healthy human.
Understood. Now, Dr. Reed, when you think about that, you kind of use your own lifestyle, some of the things you wrote about also in your fitness book as well, and on your social media to encourage people about fitness and health. How do you handle the patient that may come in and say, well, I think I look good. I think I look okay for my weight. I don't want to look too skinny and people think I'm unhealthy. Mm-hmm. How does that approach? How do you answer that type of a patient?
Well, that's a perfect question because as a marathoner, I've done 3 marathons and that's 26.2 miles. And while you're out there on the course doing those miles, you see people who look all different sizes. Some are extremely thin, which you might consider underweight, and some will be extremely obese or even morbidly obese. But it's also looking at the total package of the person. What do their labs look like? How's their cholesterol? How's their hemoglobin A1C? Are they a pre-diabetic? Because we have over 80 million people out there that are pre-diabetic, which means that they're at an increased risk of developing diabetes. Then we look like, how's their heart function? Are they able to walk up a flight of stairs without getting a little short of breath or out of breath when that happens? So it's not just looking at how they look, but it's also taking into consideration their inside. And I also find a lot of it has to do with, your confidence level. So if you feel comfortable in the skin that you're in, you're more likely to be open to any positive changes that need to happen. And if you need to have any weight loss, you can it could be framed a different way because you really care about how you look and how you feel. And I tell people, like, when you look good, you feel good. And when you feel good, you look good. But at the same time, makeup will do a lot. Changing your hairstyle will do a lot, but you really have to be in tune what's in your heart. And I mean, even with my book is called Mentally Fit, Physically Strong. A lot of that has to do with how you feel here and then how you think.
Excellent. And when this show is so important because it kind of ties into some of my previous shows on hypertension and diabetes. And we know having proper nutrition and proper health can help alleviate so many of the comorbidities like diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol. So I'm so happy that you ladies were able to join me today to tie everything in. So when we bring that back, Shauna, I'm going to ask you some questions. How does nutrition play a factor in decreasing being overweight and leading to obesity? So what are some of the things you would tell your patients?
Yeah, so nutrition is really important. In terms of losing weight, so maybe you have to lose a certain amount of weight to not go to diabetes because you got your numbers and you found out you're pre-diabetic and you want to intervene. It's important to know that you can lose 80% of the weight with diet alone. I mean, I can't say that enough, because oftentimes people say, well, I'm not exercising enough. And I tell them, in order to burn 1 pound of fat, you have to walk 39 miles. Well, maybe if you live in New York, it's possible, but anywhere else in the country, it really isn't. So thinking about what we eat is highly important. And you said something very important. We have a lot of things out there that are not nutritious, that are not good for us. So really thinking about what that plate, what one puts in their body is really is highly important. So if I wanted to think about, a good nutritious, and just because women, we don't have a lot of time, it's fast. We need to be able to say, okay, what am I going to eat today? My go-to: nuts, fiber, green leafy vegetable. And if there's any vegetable, any vegetable. So those are my go-tos. And then what do I run away from? I run away from high salt. So I am looking at labels. I am reading labels, and I understand. And I recommend everybody have label literacy. High salt, because you'll read something and you'll think, oh, this is supposed to be good for me. This granola bar is the best thing ever. And I often tell people, okay, if it's in a bar, I usually, bars are good for hiking or camping when you can't bring a whole kitchen with you. So there's a lot packed in there. And if you're using that bar as a snack, one has to think about it, because that bar might be a couple of meals. So I stay away from high salt, high processed, high sugar. I stay far away from those. My go-to is some nuts and fiber, and then anything green and leafy, and at least a vegetable.
Sounds good. And Michelle, how do you encourage your patients?
Well, just like Dr. Thompson just said, it's the sugar, the fat, and the salt that makes food taste so good. But part of that is how we grew up. So there are some tables, you walk into their house, they already have the salt and the pepper on the table before they even taste what the food is. The family's just adding it away. So it's training your palate that all because it's not full of fat and sugar and salt, it can be healthy. It can still taste good because you might start using different herbs instead of the salt and the pepper. So I think that starts at the young age. Children will mimic what their parents do. So if you're that parent that just has a cup of coffee, this is water in here today, but if you have that cup of coffee and you're running out to the car, come on kids, you got to catch the bus, and you don't eat, they're going to get into the habit of not eating too. They are watching you. Mm-hmm. Research has even shown that at the age of 3, that what is determines your level of fitness that you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. So if you think about that, between the exercise and the nutrition, if we are not being steered in the right way with an appropriate model, and which I feel the best model of all for role models are your parents, that is going to change the trajectory of your life. My kids will tell a story about like how we always have breakfast, lunch, and dinner together when we're home. because that's how I grew up. My mom was a housewife, so she was there and able to provide. I don't cook like she does, but if we do takeout, it's going to be something healthier as opposed to pizza. We might have, chicken, we're going to have some vegetables, and we're going to have a little carbohydrates. So I think it really goes back to the family unit determining what we're going to eat and making sure that we eat it together because we have to be healthy.
I agree with that. Monique, can we explore this space a little bit about the children?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was going to dive a little deeper for a bit because, again, it's important that we start addressing the kids at a young age because that's what leads into adulthood. So we're going to definitely dive deeper here. So, Shauna, how do we start to touch in to our young people, get them more educated?
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, because Dr. Reed said an important thing. She's able to at least try and help with, she tries when she's home, the families all eat together. For some people, they can't. Their parents may be out working. So how do we start to get those people who can't do what we're suggesting to make sure that their kids, starting at a young age, get to eat 3 times a day so that we can grow into healthier adults?
So the first thing I start with is the whole idea of finishing your plate. This whole idea has contributed hugely to obesity, just like in medicine, pain scores, contributed to the opioid epidemic. Finishing your plate. I mean, we all grew up with this. There's starving people in Africa. Africa has emerging economies; they're doing kind of well. There's starving people in China outside of the pandemic because now no one can leave their house. China has a really strong economy, and America has obesity. So kids, don't tell your kids to finish their plate. Definitely give them less, but if they're not hungry, stop. And allow them to eat on demand. This is the most important thing, and I often tell, because I take care of women, and most women have children, and most women spend all their days, trying to figure out how to feed their kids. And how do kids eat? They eat breakfast, snack, lunch, snack. I'm not hungry. And what do we do with them? We say, okay, here's your breakfast, here's a snack, here's your lunch. Don't eat that. I'm making dinner, and then finish all your food. We confuse people, and then we force them to eat past the point of being full. So if anything, today, no one's finishing any plates. I don't finish my plate. In fact, if I finish my plate, we all know it's like Thanksgiving dinner. You start getting full. When you don't finish your plate, it's important to remove the guilt that you start feeding the kids at the young age. They get the guilt that they didn't finish their plate because they're starving kids somewhere. Let's stop that immediately. The other thing I think is really important is this idea of snacks. We've kind of given snacking a bad name, but snacking, if I have breakfast and then have a snack, I'm not going to have as big of a lunch. But what happens is that we have breakfast, we don't eat, then maybe we don't even eat lunch, but we have lunch, and then we have this huge gap so that we overeat. So this idea of frequent small meals, highly important to avoid the binging, to avoid that need to fill and sometimes go past the point.
I think you touched on a very important point. Michelle, I'll let you speak shortly because that was one of the things I was personally doing as well, kind of not eating all day. And Dr. Reed will say that. And I would get home and binge eat. And then it started to have an effect on my health. So again, it's also great to have good, strong coaches and friends that'll encourage you to say, hey, did you get your breakfast? I was waking up to text messages from Dr. Reed. Don't forget to eat breakfast today. So it's important, even if you have a buddy that can help you get through and changing your lifestyle. So I can honestly say what you both are speaking about is definitely doable because, again, I started putting work before everything else. And that's not always the most important thing for you. You can't be as productive as you want to be in anything if you can't take care and empower yourself and do better.
Yes,
So Dr. Reed?
Yeah, and I was going to say what Dr. Thompson was just talking about is we have to also think, okay, we are busy, especially women or even as parents in general, but I like to say we take the time to do what we consider to be important. So if it's important for my family to eat healthy, you can even meal prep. And I find that when I meal prep, and that's cooking food, enough food for maybe 2 to 3 days, that is when we are on point because guess what? No one's thinking about, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to cook today? It's already planned. And one of the beautiful things that you can do is introduce that to your children and have your children help you do it. I think I was shopping either on a Saturday and then Sunday after church, I would meal prep. And then I found, okay, well, you know what? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work because it depends on like how creative am I trying to do. And then, and then I have a friend who likes to cook and she even did meal preps for us too. But it's figuring out what makes best for you and your family. And when we're talking about intake of food, I encourage people to drink water. You see what's right here next to me? That's in my cup is water. And we should be drinking at least half our body weight, especially if we are under, I would like to say 230 pounds. Take half your body weight and just put ounces on the end. So if you are 160 divided by 2 is 80 ounces. And of course, if you're exercising, you're going to drink a lot more water because you're sweating, you're talking, the saliva, everything is drying up. But I think one of the easy ways to cut back on how much we're eating is to start to drink water before and after each meal with a goal of at least 8 to 10 ounces before and after each meal. And then it helps you to feel full. So you're not going to sit there and just eat that whole plate that Dr. Thompson just talked about. I would even say, because even culturally, if you go to some of the Caribbean restaurants, they give you a container and you're like, oh, wow, this thing is heavy. You're thinking it's a lot of meat and a lot of vegetables, but it's full of rice. And that's carbohydrates. That's leading us to becoming pre-diabetics and diabetics. So even if you say, you know what, food is really good, but I want less rice, or maybe no rice. So it's changing really our relationship with food and how we feel and what we know. And I think the other thing that we haven't touched on is sleep. The importance of allowing your body to rest. One of the big jokes I always say when I'm talking, I was like, I had the best sleep when my husband and I first got married. And people start laughing because they're thinking all you're doing is having sex. I was like, no, there was no TV in the room. So when I was tired, I slept straight, no interruptions. My brain wasn't being disturbed by hearing the TV in the background. So shut everything down and get those 7 to 8 hours of straight sleep because your body needs to rest, to reset. We're not machines here, we're human beings. And we can't keep going full force because you know what's going to happen. You're going to end up hanging out with Dr. Thompson because you are not going to be at a healthy weight and you're going to be saying, what can I do now? Or you're going to be visiting me because guess what? You have to be getting cleared for that surgery. So do you have hypertension, diabetes, prediabetes, high cholesterol? So, and I'll have to clear you before you see Dr. Thompson. We love you, but we don't want to see you for those types of illnesses and diseases.
I think both of you touched on really, really important areas. And why that's so important is, yes, you want to go to your doctor, you want to feel healthy, but we're finding that patients are coming because they need clearance. Something's going on medically. So 2 things that you've talked about. You talked about getting sleep. Shauna, you also talked about, making sure that we are not putting much on our plates. And yes, I always remember my mom telling me, oh, there's starving people here and I've said the same thing to my daughter as well. So it's something to change. And as you look back, we tend to forget. But one of the important things that I want to bring up is there are so many people who don't understand how to read labels. There are people who have to stay within a fixed budget. So they're getting more processed foods, more stuff in a can. They may have to use public assistance or WIC. How do you encourage those patients or those people to choose when they're in a fixed budget better choices?
That's an excellent question because even where one of my offices is located, in order to get to the office, we're passing by Popeyes, the Chinese restaurant, the pizzeria, of course, closed during COVID. There's another fried chicken place. So that's right in the radius of where we are, half a mile radius. So it's encouraging people, you know what, you might be on a fixed income, but if you have a choice between something that is canned or something that is frozen, choose the frozen because it's going to probably have less salt. But if you can only get the can, try and take and rinse it off a couple of times to see if you can get rid of some of the salt. If you have a choice between something baked or something fried, try and offer and get the baked. Some communities, thankfully, are having, I guess, community refrigerators. And that is also helping with obesity and hopefully going to be able to lower some of the numbers that we're seeing with hypertension and high cholesterol. But we have to be innovative. One of the organizations that I'm a part of, we did a program for one of the local schools, and we talked about the importance of using herbals for herbal treatment for foods, to season your foods, using different spices. And we even helped them to start their own little garden. So it's figuring out, like, you know what? The parents might not have time for it, but maybe just offer the child the opportunity to grow something. They might not have the space because they might not have a backyard, but they might have like a window sill that they can put some dirt and start to grow plants. And it's just inspiring people to think a little bit out of the box.
Yeah, I want to add to that, especially the garden. So a lot of what we do is cultural. So many of our ancestors, what have you, they grew food. And even in the 1950s, they had a plot, they were able to grow, and they had gardening skills, and they were able to eat from that. So that cultural change is highly important. And then I forgot the other thing I was going to say, but this is very exciting. We'll just move on.
It's so funny because, again, I think that is the one thing that we could start our young people doing, whether it's indoors with growing things, or even if it's a small area outdoors, because it's a skill that they can develop over time, right? I remember maybe about 2 summers ago, my daughter and husband digging up more of the grass to grow more things. And I'm going, what the heck am I paying the gardener for? And it keeps getting less and less. But it also becomes more economical when you start growing your own herbs and vegetables. And then we started bottling things and, trying to do a little better with eating healthier. So I think that's very important. But I think the key thing is when people are on fixed budgets, how do we make it work for those, people? Because again, like you said, Dr. Reed, there's the Popeyes, there's the Kentucky, there's the McDonald's, there's the Chinese restaurants, things that are very high in salt and high cholesterol, and also carbohydrates. So how do we make this healthy for them?
So I have more to add here, and I remember what I wanted to say. So often when I'm counseling my patients, and we often talk about what did they do before that they were successful, and oftentimes they're like, well, I kind of was eating the same thing. You often realize that you kind of eat the same thing, and that leads you can eat the same thing, and that can lead to lead to nutrition, lead to health. So what are those same things? They said, well, I was eating some fish, I was eating some vegetables, I was eating some eggs. These are not expensive things. And I have to say, I have the same breakfast every day. I have yogurt. I put my fiber in there. I start my day with citrus. So I put a little bit of lemon in my plain yogurt, teeny bit of honey, and then I have my oats, I have my nuts. It's based on a French diet. They eat a lot of the same things every day. So nowadays, a lot of our entertainment has been centered around our food, but sometimes we do maybe need to uncouple that and realize food is just fuel. It doesn't need to be fancy. It can be simple. I can go to the grocery store, go to my 3 aisles that are usually around the perimeter, not in the middle, around the perimeter, get what I need to, get and go. So keeping it simple, I think, can be really helpful.
You know what was interesting? You said the perimeter of the supermarket. And so when you think of the perimeter, I think of the eggs, butter, you usually have the meat, and then there's the vegetables. That's usually the perimeter. But people don't visualize that. And I think that was an important thing that you brought up, Dr. Thompson, because everybody gets stuck in those middle aisles, right? Where you have the pasta, you have the rice, you have the canned beans and what have you. So mentioning the perimeter, I think, was a key point that I think we'll try and add to the chat for people to think about, because that's something that people just don't think about. So Dr. Reed, questions. When we think about fitness, what are some of the exercises or some of the things that you would recommend to help burn calories for people to get a little healthy? Let's work on some of those things.
So the best way not to burn any calories is not to do anything at all. But we all want to burn the calories because we want to make sure we're getting the heart health going too, decreasing our cholesterol, decreasing our chance of that prediabetes going to diabetes. So we need to move. I encourage people to find whatever exercise that they love to do, and that's what they need to do. You can't go and say like, oh my gosh, I don't like to run. I don't like to ride a bike. I don't know how to ride a bike. But we all know how to walk. Majority of us know how to dance. And dancing, you can lose a lot of weight just as long as it's not slow dancing. And you should be moving at least 150 minutes a week. And I'll go back to the example I gave before. When you're dancing, you should be able to have a conversation like this. Not like, hi, Dr. Thompson and Dr. Jones. That means you're out of breath. You should be a little winded. You shouldn't be able to sing a song, an entire song, because if you can sing a song and have a conversation, that means you're not working hard enough. So turn on the music, dance. The weather, hopefully, eventually here on the East Coast gets warm. Go outside, put on your sneakers, walk around the block. Start what we call interval training. So you can walk maybe 1 block slow and then half a block fast, then 1 block slow and then half a block fast. And once your body gets used to doing that, you know what? Do half a block slow and then 1 block fast. And then you just trick your body and, like, oh, I got this down pat. Start doing some squats in between your intervals. Start doing some walking lunges. You have to be creative. And I tell people, as long as you have a smartphone out there, there's YouTube. There are a lot of free exercise apps where you can design your own workout. If you feel like you want to work out with the best trainer that you heard of, all you have to do is Google, and I'm pretty sure they have something on YouTube. And eventually, you'll probably be enticed to join the platform and pay for their services. But it starts with you just making that initial idea to move and not be stationary, because you don't want to be stationary. I tell patients, you don't want to be average. You don't want to be basic. You want to be common. You were put on this earth to be extraordinary. And what can we do with this temple that's extraordinary? It's a gift. Return that gift in even better condition than what you are in right now.
That is very, very positive. Shauna, what would you encourage and advise your patients?
Yeah, so there's a few things here. we're busy women. Women are busy with kids or not. And so personally, and this is when you get into the personal stories, I like to fit fitness in during my morning routine. I'm brushing my teeth. I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Those are standing abs. Every time I go to the bathroom, depending on bladder control, I tell people depending on bladder, but every time I go to the bathroom, I do squats. I have 3 children. There's like decades of going to the bathroom. You pick either one. While we're in the stall, mommy does squats, and they learn that they can take that time to exercise. I share that it's important with your, and then this depends. I am definitely I need to be efficient. I don't have a lot of time. So I pick exercises that do the cardio, flexibility, core strength, balance. Like I need all of those, and I need to hit them all. And there's exercises that hit them all. You can put one leg behind you on the couch, put a water bottle in your hand, go up and then touch your toes. You're hitting it all. You can do a minute on each side. You can do 10 on each side, 10 reps or, a minute on each side. And that's the interval training that Dr. Reed is talking about. And you hit all those different areas. I also do focus. And again, it's really important. Whatever you do, you will do. It's important not to try to do something you're not going to, that you really don't want to do. Not everybody can do hot yoga. I love it, but not everybody can do hot yoga. So I know. To me, it's like the best. But because I like to sweat even before my workout, it's but everybody's different. So it's important to do what your body, what you feel comfortable doing. But I also will highlight that strength and resistance. And I'll highlight this because a lot of women have this idea that I shouldn't pick up the weights. I'll bulk up. You know what? The only exercise that's going to lead to like some weight loss that's at least a little bit is going to be your strength and resistance. Because remember I said 39 miles to burn 1 pound of fat. So it's important to lift up those weights, to lift up, that water bottle if you're gonna get any type of weight loss from that. Heart healthy, definitely. The other thing I want to caution that I do tell my patients, because you hear this story all the time. I started working out and I gained 5 pounds, and people are frustrated. And I let them know that when you start exercising, a hormone called ghrelin, they're like, what is this? It's a hormone called ghrelin. It is the hunger hormone. It is the reason why every single gym is next to a Steak and Shake, is next to a Dunkin' Donuts. They might serve, smoothies inside because you get hungry. So when you exercise, maybe you did your, Zumba class, you burn 300 calories, but you're gonna buy a 600 calorie smoothie. And so, you have to then you do the math. So when you exercise, highlight the fact that you must have a diet in protein and fiber. Fiber, because it fills you up. Fiber fills you up, makes you feel hungry. Protein, because there's not a lot of carb with that. The protein helps to give you that strength. So those 2 things, if I'm going to exercise, I have to know exactly what I'm going to eat, or else I'll end up buying a smoothie that I really don't want to do.
For some people, it can be a little challenging to start off that way. One of the things that I started doing at the beginning of the year is parking my car the furthest from the entrance in the parking lot, because it's requiring me to walk. It does 2 things. Not only do I have to walk, but at the end of the day, when I'm leaving work, it also allows me to clear my mind so that I'm not taking some of the added stress and stuff from work home with me. Some days it works, some days it doesn't. But again, I think if we can do things just as simple as everything that you're saying, park further away from the entrance so that you have to, walk a little further. Think about what you're eating, when you're exercising, when we're talking about different hormones. People don't know those hormones that exist, like ghrelin, and that it can cause you to want to eat more. And people then get frustrated when they're saying, I'm exercising, I'm doing all of this, and it looks like I put on 3 more pounds and the scale is going up and down and it looks jagged. You have to be patient with yourself, which is what Dr. Reed said and Dr. Thompson said earlier, because it's really important that you're going to eventually level out and then start to come down on that plateau and get
Mhm.
to your targeted goal. So, I find all of the things that we've been saying so far very important. But I also want to leave some time for questions that are out there. But I want to make sure that we've talked about um all things. Like, is there any specific things that you would like to say should be on a plate? Like, we should be targeting every day the food groups, right? The food colors and how much that should be on a plate. Because yes, people will pile things up, but not think about getting all the right things on a plate. I know we mentioned vegetables. I know we mentioned fruits. I know we mentioned grains. Is there anything else that you guys would like to discuss and mention to our audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think nuts are really important. The oils we get from nuts, it's something that we don't think about. And I'm not talking like a lot, just, a little bit. But there are some benefits from nuts, and it's not really part of the American diet so much. And I personally think there's a lot of benefit in that. Also looking at the oils that we use. So switching, and I know olive oil can be expensive. It's more expensive than the other oils. However, if I had to choose, I'd like a little dab will do ya. They've done studies that a tablespoon, just taking a tablespoon of olive oil a day is hard, there's huge benefits. And I did not say apple cider vinegar. I did not say any of that, because please don't do that. But a little bit of olive oil, adding olive oil to the cooking, I think is really important. I don't know, Dr. Reed, what would you add?
Well, I think the big craze now is people are going around saying that they're vegan or vegetarian or modified vegan or vegetarian, and not being very intentional with what they're doing. So if you are going to go all the way, that means the butter, you shouldn't be using butter. You want to make healthy choices. The olive oil is a good thing to use. If you say that, okay, I'm not going to eat any meat, think about what meat choices you will have. I guess even if you say that if you do decide you want to have meat, what are your options for being a pescatarian? What type of fish will you have? Um, because we know some fish is healthier than other fish. So if you had a choice between salmon and I'll just say sardines, realize that even if the sardines comes in a can and maybe that's all you can afford, is it going to be salty? Looking at the labels like Dr. Thompson just talked about, not realizing that you have to have the whole 10, but maybe half the 10. So really looking at your portions and what types of food that you're going to have. We talk about your cholesterol level. So everyone thinks like, well, Dr. Reed, my cholesterol is only up because I've been eating good. I've been really good. And I'm like, okay, so are you eating any eggs? Because the yolk of the eggs is where you get the fat. Oh no, I don't eat eggs at all. Oh, right. So cheese? No, I'm lactose intolerant. So you're not eating like shellfish. So what's shellfish? Shrimp, lobster, crab, mussels, scallops. Oh, I have that all the time. Well, how much is all the time? Because that in itself is going to raise your cholesterol. So it's really having a conversation with your physician as to what you're eating, because sometimes what you think is going to be healthy for you, because people see that as a healthy choice, as shellfish or seafood being healthy, not realizing that shellfish in itself is not healthy. So, and then not being afraid to ask a question. I say there's no thing called a dumb question. The only dumb question is a question that you didn't ask and you keep thinking about it. So really be intentional about what you put in your mouth.
Yeah, and I want to add to this. This is so important because of the fads, the vegetarian, the vegan, and then I'll talk about some intermittent fasting because we do need to go there. But the vegetarian and the vegan, and in my practice, I find that some of the most overweight people are vegetarian and vegan. You're like, how can that be? I had someone tell me they were vegetarian and they ate pizza every day for a year. So again, it's making those choices. And one thing that I always point to, because it's important to keep it easy and fast.
Mhm.
If you're going to have carb, you have to have protein.
Mhm.
So if I'm going to have 5 crackers, I better put something on it, cheese or, meat. I need some protein on that, or else I'm going to have the whole sleeve. And
Mhm.
the issue with vegetarianism is that you can't get the protein. It's so hard to think about the protein. So
Mhm.
all you do is have carbs and highly processed foods. So very important, just like Dr. Reed said, if you're going to be a vegetarian or vegan, it has to be intentional. It's so much harder to be as healthy as you need to be if you're going to do those two things. Then I want to say something about intermittent fasting. I do recommend in some instances intermittent fasting. However, like I said, you kind of need to eat all day long in order it's easiest to eat all day long. When we do intermittent fasting, the way that you do that, there's a lot of different ways. There's the 16-8, you don't eat for 16 hours, you only eat for 8 hours, or you can skip around. I can do the breakfast and lunch one day, lunch and dinner. But the issue is with intermittent fasting, you can't allow yourself to overeat at the during the next meal.
Meal.
Yeah, and with intermittent fasting, we have lots of cultures that do it. The Catholics, I'm Catholic sometimes, so the Catholics they have their Lent. We have Ramadan. Different cultures, they all have a certain amount of fasting, and so we know it can be done, but it's highly important not to have the overeating if you're going to do the intermittent fasting.
So how do you suggest somebody works it out to be on a better schedule when they are trying to do intermittent fasting?
So I have a lot of conversations with them. I have to see, when do they work? Do they work in the evenings? When do they come home? What is their partner doing? Because sometimes the weight started because they're in a new relationship, or they've been married for however long. Before they were married, they were fine, and they got me. So we dive into a lot of their scheduling and what works for their day. But I think for most, if you do kind of a 9 to 5 day, and I'll caution this, because those who eat breakfast usually able to maintain their weight better. But some people, really don't need breakfast. And if they're going to do the intermittent fasting, maybe it's better for them to start later in the day, start eating at 11, so that they have that 8-hour stretch to take them to when they get home. So I like to keep if one's going to do intermittent fasting, I like to think about an 8-hour window. I tend to think that's the easiest, and moving that 8-hour window wherever you need. But also, like Dr. Reed says, you need sleep. The more you sleep, the less you eat. So you need to balance all those things.
Mm-hmm. And I was going to say, and another thing that you need to keep in mind is, are you taking any medicine? Because the last thing that we need is for you to be intermittent fasting, be a diabetic or be a hypertensive, and take your medicine on an empty stomach. And then all of a sudden you crash because your blood pressure went down or your glucose level went down. So really make sure you have that conversation with the doctor before you start your intermittent fasting, to make sure that this is going to be the right program for you, and how do you take your medication around what you're trying to do.
Exactly.
So it's having that open communication with your physician, right? Being able to have access to have that discussion around medications, and also how do we eat when we are taking medications.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings me to a question. People will say that their medications made them gain weight. And we know that's not always necessarily true, but are there any medications that are out there that will or can cause people to gain weight?
Well, I was going to say, there are some blood pressure medicines that can cause swelling of your legs and your feet, but it's also paying attention to your body. And that's why I said being intentional about what happens, what you take in. And when I say take in, that's including your food and your medicine and what you drink. So if you're paying attention that all of a sudden your doctor put you on a new medicine and you notice like a week later, you're starting to have some swelling in your legs or your feet, that could be because of the medicine that you're on. So it's really paying attention to what is going on. One of the other things that when you start exercising, keep in mind, I say throw the scale out. Because if you start worrying about what the scale is doing, you're going to go crazy. And enough is going on in this world right now that we don't need to go crazy. Think about how your clothes fit. Are you able to zip up your zipper on those favorite jeans, or does that waistline feel a little looser? And if you're looking at your top, do your breasts sit the same way now that you started doing that exercise that Dr. Thompson was talking about? Do you notice a difference? And keep in mind that if you do decide to weigh yourself, muscle weighs more than fat.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So those legs are probably getting a lot more muscular than they were before.
And I want to add something to this, Monique, and it's maybe a kind of a personal type of passion for me. But one, I really try to go to weight neutral medications because they do exist. And it's important to think about that. And for those medications that might cause weight gain or even might make somebody hungrier such that they eat more. It's not the medication doing it, but it changes one's appetite. I counsel about that. And again, all these side effects don't happen for everybody, but it does happen for some. And so you want to know, that, because if you have a chance of being that 10%, you're like, it's not worth it. And then the other thing I will add is that it's almost an epidemic when it comes to our mentally ill patients who are on medications, because these medications cause them to eat more. And I mean, it's probably another part of the epidemic or upcoming epidemic that we haven't focused on. But those who are maintained on, all these different types of antidepressants, psychotropics, what have you, we need to think about how to give them a medication. There are medications that help with weight loss, how to counteract that with a medication, because they are not going to have the ability, the wherewithal, any of those things to possibly make those decisions. We have to assist them in that area. So, choosing a weight neutral medication, highly important. And then for those who there's no way that they're going to be able to avoid the side effects of the medication that they really need, but it's going to make them eat, give them another medication to help maintain their weight.
More to come on the psychological aspect. That's a few months from now. So I'm hoping you two will join on to that podcast. But I just want to ask, is there any questions that anybody wants to send in the chat, since we're getting close to ending? So I have a question. Is there any prevention strategies that you would recommend for, let's start with the middle school age students, and then we'll work our way up?
So I say encourage your children to be healthy. My kids will tell you about how when they were like 8, 9 years old, I would say before I go to work, we are going to be riding our bikes like 15 miles 3 times a week. And they laugh at it, but when they think about it, they were really learning how to exercise and the importance of starting your day off with some type of routine. So I would love to join Dr. Thompson for hot yoga, but I know hot yoga is not for me. I've gone to Orange Theory with my bestie. I love the weights portion. I love the rowing, but getting me on a treadmill, that's not me. So children have to go through the same stages. So I think about it with my kids. We first started with soccer. One enjoyed soccer. The other played after soccer. After everybody was finished playing, he wanted to play soccer. Then it was basketball. So basketball seemed to stick, but then we brought in the bike riding to strengthen the legs, to help with the core, to help with the balance. So I think for us, it's consistency, encouraging exercise at least 1 hour every day for our children. From the time that they can walk and move, they need that movement. They need to improve their dexterity. If you look at children now, they don't have that same motor strength and coordination because they don't get a chance to go outside and play as much as we do. So that some of them don't even have the proper mechanics for running. So it has to start at a young age, and we need to be consistent. We have to be the role model for our children, because once you start at that young age of 3, and then you go to 10 and your parents are there, and then by the time they get to middle school for a team sport, there's less parents there. So when we're not showing up for our children when they are competing with other kids, by the time they get to high school, they don't really realize the importance of it, because guess what? Their parents are nowhere to be found in the stands. And when we're not in the stand supporting them, they don't realize the importance of taking care of their body. So it's for us as parents being consistent, so our children will be consistent past the time of college. And then when they graduate from college or they start having a family, that they are instilling those same traditions with their family.
Great.
Yeah, I love that. I don't want to add to that, if that's okay. That's what I
It's
do.
okay.
Oh my goodness. We could, I mean, I hope we have another hour. No, I'm lying. So this is, everything you said is so important. They've done studies that when children do whatever activity is before puberty,
Mhm.
after puberty, even if they stop it and never go back to it, they will go back to it as adult most of the
Mhm.
times. And if they go back to it as an adult, they still have an ability to be professional in it.
Right.
So that early time is so very important.
Mhm.
And now if you have access to a computer, even if you're going to the library, you know, what have you, if you have access to these things, there's a lot you can do that before you had to pay for. I mean,
Mhm.
and of course I'm trained in classical ballet and I love yoga, but you know, I started early with itsy bitsy yoga. The kid came out, we're doing itsy bitsy yoga stretching, because you know why? I'm a working woman, and that gave me the first 6 weeks of sleep. Baby slept, I slept,
Mhm.
because they had a rhythm. And now my kids exercise, and they love to exercise. They're like, "Are we
Mhm.
going to go do something?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I guess so." Let's go. So it's wonderful.
You know, even if they can't do something that may cost money, something as simple as, even like you said, walking the dog,
Yes.
just
Mhm.
stretching it even further, starting with walking around the block.
Mhm.
Um, you know, do the supermarket, go down every aisle, even though you want to stay on the peripheral aisle, go up and down the aisles in a circular motion. And thank God that a lot of the fitness watches, you know, the Fitbits and the Apple Watches, you can count your steps, okay? You can count how much motion you're doing and how much movement. So something as simple as using just a device, if you have one, whether it be on your phone or on your wrist,
Mhm.
also very helpful. One of the things that you guys also mentioned is raising your heart rate, because that is important to help burn a little bit of the calories that we need to burn. But some of the key points that we talked about was starting early with a routine,
Mhm.
having a routine, getting your children into a routine, because that makes them into being better adults. Um, you know, we touched on a lot of subjects and a lot of topics today, and topics that we're going to talk about in the future. But this section tied in to our diabetes, our hypertension, our sleep section. But again, it will also eventually tie into our psychological and neurological section that we'll have in the future for our talks. But we are coming to the end of the show, and I know we can continue talking, and we probably can have more time. But I just want to see if there are any other questions that are out there that we can talk to, you know, our audience, to help empower them to be better and to grow and just make themselves more whole and well as we move toward the second half of our year here.
So, Monique, I see one question out there. What websites do you recommend for free exercise? So it's funny. Martha Stewart said, somebody asked Martha Stewart, what is the best cookbook? And she said, Google. So that is my answer to this too. You want to work on arms? Google arms. You want to work on kids exercises in 30 minutes? Google kids exercises in 30 minutes. You want to do yin yoga? Google yin yoga. You want to, I want to, I want to lose 20 pounds. I mean, you can Google anything. And I have to say that is the best by far. And
But I was going to say my favorite, my new favorite, because before I was like, go to YouTube for everything, is Fit On, FITON. Yes, I am the fit doc, but Fit On, and you can work out with all different trainers for free. And if you decide that the three of us want to work out together, as long as we're on that same platform, I can send the invite and the three of us can work out together. You can set, like, I want to exercise to tone up. Then you can say, they'll give you the exact program. I want to do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and on Sunday at 6 o'clock in the morning. It's going to send you a reminder. And all you have to do is just click the button and right there in your calendar, and it's going to take you right on to Fit On. And you can do whatever workout. If you decide, like, you know what, it's kind of boring because I don't really hear music, you can pay an extra couple of dollars a month and you'll have the music in the background and even meal preps. So there's so much out there on the internet. You just have to be open to doing something different. And it goes back to being intentional. We have to be intentional on what we do. And one of the intentional things that you can do is by Mentally Fit, Physically Strong. And it's a very easy read. And it's like my health journey where I talk about what I did personally to get me interested in moving and being healthy, and how I inspired people, but also how some people in my life inspired me. So I encourage you to be intentional in changing the trajectory of not only your life, but your family and your friends, because everybody's watching you.
I have to say it's a very good book. I have it myself, so I do recommend it to the audience. And we are getting close to the end. I want to make sure that I've covered everybody's questions.
There's one more. Yeah, I see one more question in there, Nate. I don't want to leave my woman over 50 with menopausal weight gain. Just so you know, so first, a story of inspiration. There's a woman out there, and probably many of you know this bodybuilder. I don't remember her name, but she started working out at the age of 70.
Miss Ernestine.
Yes, killing it, right? So you can be the best you want to be at any age. It does not matter. So dealing with, I recommend probably you talk to an obesity medicine, specialist, Dr. Reed, talk to somebody about your weight loss journey and to find out, well, what are your factors? What's going to work for you? Because it has to be personalized. There is generic stuff, but we all know, healthy diet and exercise doesn't always work if you don't know how to do it. So definitely, you see your physician, but know that you can do it. You can start like being the next Ernestine. Like, you have 20 years to get there. You can start now.
Dr. Reed, can you hold up your book for us again and tell us how we can have people order?
So Mentally Fit, Physically Strong, you can order it on Amazon. Make sure it's Michelle with one L, Reed, REED. And you can also go to my website, fitdoc.com, and you can purchase it there. But we're on Amazon. And you want to make sure you get the one with the picture looking like this, because that's my second edition.
I'm going to have to upgrade. I still have the first edition. But I want to thank both Dr. Thompson and Dr. Reed for being part of the show today. This was an extremely, extremely important topic, and how we can empower our women and our families to become better and healthier and stronger individuals. So again, thank you. And we will keep in touch. And please join the other shows, because again, everything ties into one another. So I try and make sure that when we are talking about different topics, one thing leads into another and continues to allow our women to grow and empower themselves to be better. So thank you.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah,
You're
this
welcome.
was great.
We're going to log out.
Okay.
You're listening to All About Us Radio. We're live streaming 24/7, playing old school versus new school. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at AAU Media.